Some disappearances happen quietly. No warning, no clear answers, just a moment where someone is there, and then, suddenly they're not. Nancy Guthrie's case is one of those stories. An elderly woman vanishes from her own home. Signs appear that something wasn't right. And almost immediately, investigators begin treating the situation as more than a missing person case. What happened inside that house? Was this targeted? And why do some of the early clues raise more questions than answers? In this episode of Real Case Records, we examine the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, the timeline, the evidence investigators focused on, and the details that continue to shape the search. Parts of the footage used in this video are from the YouTube channel Bad Things True Crime. Full credit goes to them for their original reporting and breakdown. Because sometimes the most important details are the ones discovered in the first hours. If you appreciate fact-based true crime that focuses on timelines, evidence, and respectful storytelling, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and share your thoughts below. And as we go through this case, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's begin.
Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of NBC Today anchor Savannah Guthrie, was apparently abducted from her Tucson area home in the early hours of February 1, 2026. And 17 days later, she has not been found. This case has become the most closely watched criminal investigation in America, drawing comparisons to the Lindbergh kidnapping and consuming national media attention. An armed masked suspect was captured on recovered doorbell camera footage. DNA from an unknown male was recovered from a discarded glove. Multiple contradictory ransom demands were sent to media outlets rather than the family, and yet no arrests have been made. The FBI reward stands at $100,000. More than 40,000 tips have poured in, and several hundred investigators are assigned to the case. But the central question remains unanswered. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Nancy Guthrie, a life before the headlines. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky, across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. She married Charles Errol Guthrie, a mining engineer, on December 28, 1963, and his career took the family to Melbourne, Australia, where their youngest child, Savannah Clark Guthrie, was born on December 27, 1971, at Sandringham Hospital. The Guthries also had two older children, Annie Guthrie and Charles Cameron Guthrie. The family relocated to Tucson, Arizona in the early 1970s and settled in the Catalina foothills, purchasing their home in 1975 for $85,000, valued at approximately $1 million today. Tragedy struck on June 10, 1988, when Charles died of a heart attack at age 49 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico. Savannah was 16. Nancy was 46. She never remarried. She built a career at the University of Arizona from 1990 to 2007, working first as a spokeswoman for University Medical Center and later in university advancement. In retirement, she lived alone in the Catalina foothills home. Despite chronic heart conditions requiring a pacemaker and daily medication, and having limited mobility, she could not walk 50 yards by herself, according to investigators. Nancy remained mentally sharp. Sheriff Chris Nanos would later emphasize, "Nancy Guthrie is of great sound mind. This is not a dementia-related case. She is as sharp as a tack." Her daughter Savannah became one of the most recognized journalists in America, co-anchoring NBC's Today Show since 2012. The mother-daughter bond was frequently displayed on national television. Savannah once described Nancy as a woman who has met unthinkable challenges in her life with grit, without self-pity, with determination, and always, always with unshakable faith. The timeline of January 31st to February 1st, 2026 is reconstructed from Sheriff's Department press conferences, FBI releases, and corroborated media reporting. All times are Mountain Standard Time. At approximately 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, January 31st, Nancy left her home via Uber to have dinner and play games at the nearby home of her daughter Annie and Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni. Investigators later spoke with the Uber driver. At approximately 9:48 p.m., Cioni drove Nancy home and dropped her off. Her garage door opened at 9:48 p.m. and closed at 9:50 p.m. Sheriff Nanos stated at a February 5th press conference, "It's at that time we assume Nancy is home and probably going to bed." Cioni was the last known person to see Nancy alive. Sometime after midnight, a masked armed individual approached Nancy's front door. Recovered doorbell camera footage shows the person ducking his head away from the camera, then cupping it with a gloved hand, then pulling vegetation from the garden bed to obscure it. At 1:47 a.m., the Google Nest doorbell camera disconnected, physically removed from the door. At 2:12 a.m., a separate home security camera detected motion, but because Nancy did not have an active subscription, no video was saved. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker application disconnected from her phone. A Bluetooth severance that former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe interpreted as indicating she was taken far enough away from her phone that the connection cut off. The critical abduction window, 1:47 a.m. to 2:28 a.m., 41 minutes. Nancy was expected at a friend's home that morning to watch a live-streamed church service. When she failed to appear, the friend contacted the Guthrie family. At 11:56 a.m., family members arrived at Nancy's home and found her phone, wallet, hearing aids, daily medication, smartwatch, and car, all left behind. At 12:03 p.m., they called 911. Deputies arrived at 12:15 p.m. and discovered what Nanos would describe as grave concerns: blood on the front porch and a missing doorbell camera. By evening, the Sheriff's Department held its first press conference. Nanos declared, "We believe now, after we processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime. She did not leave on her own. We know that." The suspect on the doorbell camera. On February 10th, after 8 days of intensive work with private sector partners, the FBI recovered footage from residual data located in back-end systems of Google's cloud infrastructure. Despite Nancy lacking an active recording subscription, FBI Director Kash Patel posted 6 black and white photos and 3 video clips on X, showing an armed individual at Nancy's front door. The suspect was officially described on February 12th as male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", average build with a black mustache visible through a ski mask. He wore dark clothing, a dark jacket, light-colored pants or khakis, black nitrile gloves and sneakers. A holstered firearm was visible on his waistband, positioned unusually in the crotch area, a detail that led multiple experts to characterize him as an amateur. He carried a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack backpack, sold exclusively at Walmart for approximately $11, and held a small flashlight in his mouth. Former SWAT Deputy Rob Krieger called the individual unsophisticated. The gun handling, unconventional holster placement, and failure to immediately disable the camera all suggested someone without professional training. Yet veteran crime analyst Weaver Bachman, with 26 years at the Pima County Sheriff's Department, offered a more nuanced read. He is dressed in a manner that will minimize, if not prohibit, deposition of trace evidence. This boy understands forensics. That contradiction, forensic awareness combined with tactical amateurism, has become one of the case's defining puzzles, and one that shapes every theory investigators have pursued. Blood, DNA, and a discarded glove. Investigators found blood drops on Nancy's front porch leading toward the driveway. DNA testing confirmed it was Nancy's blood. Nanos described the quantity as minimal, and a bloodstain expert assessed the pattern as consistent with a drip trail, possibly from a bloody nose, suggesting a confrontation or struggle at the doorstep. Separately, investigators recovered DNA from elsewhere on the property that does not belong to Nancy or anyone in close contact with her, though the sheriff's department declined to disclose where that sample was found. The most significant forensic development came from the surrounding area. Approximately 16 gloves were collected from around the home during expanded searches, most belonging to search workers. One stood apart, found in a field near the side of the road, approximately 2 miles from Guthrie's home, near North Campbell Avenue. A second glove was found 10 miles away. The FBI confirmed the closer glove appears to match the gloves of the subject in the surveillance video. That glove was sent to DNA Labs International, a private forensic lab in Florida, on February 12th. Preliminary results received February 14th revealed a DNA profile from an unknown male. As of February 17th, the sample was undergoing final quality control before entry into CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system containing 19+ million offender profiles. If CODIS returns a match, the case could break immediately. If not, experts say forensic genealogy through ancestry databases would be the next step. Forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick of Identifinders told media that even DNA confetti, small degraded samples, can produce results. Meanwhile, investigators are working with Walmart to trace sales records of the distinctive Ozark Trail backpack, reviewing in-store surveillance footage, and canvassing local gun stores after identifying a strategy brand hip holster, $10, also sold at Walmart, in the doorbell footage. The Associated Press also reported signs of forced entry at the home, though Sheriff Nanos repeatedly declined to confirm or deny this detail publicly. The ransom notes: 4 messages, 0 proof of life. One of the case's most baffling elements is the ransom communications, sent not to the Guthrie family, but to media outlets. Former FBI agents unanimously characterized this as unprecedented in legitimate kidnappings. The first note arrived at TMZ, KOLD News 13, CBS Tucson, and KGUN 9, ABC Tucson, through their online tip portals on February 1st to 2nd. It demanded $4 million in Bitcoin by 5 p.m. MST on February 5th, escalating to $6 million by February 9th, with a threat to Nancy's life. Crucially, the note referenced an item Nancy was not wearing and an item damaged at the home, details that were not public knowledge at the time, leading FBI Special Agent in charge Heath Yanker to say the note contained facts and a deadline with a request for funds and was being taken extremely seriously. Retired FBI agents also flagged the note's use of the term USD for dollars as unusual for an American author. Both deadlines passed. The Bitcoin wallet remained at $0. No proof of life was provided. A second note arrived at KOLD around February 6th, sent via email. A journalist who reviewed it carefully said she doesn't think authorities would characterize it as a ransom note, and it used a different Bitcoin address than the first. On February 11th, a third communication arrived at TMZ, not from the kidnapper, but from someone claiming to know the kidnapper's identity, demanding 1 Bitcoin, $66,000 for the information. Around February 16th, yet another email to TMZ made a similar claim, demanding the full $100,000 FBI reward in Bitcoin. Adding to the confusion, on February 4th, Derek Kallela, 42, of Hawthorne, California, sent VoIP text messages to Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni moments after the family posted their first video appeal. "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." He was arrested by the FBI on February 5th, admitted he was trying to see if the family would respond, and was charged with 2 federal counts before being released under pre-trial conditions on February 12th. His texts were confirmed to be completely unconnected to the original ransom notes. And Kallela was already known to law enforcement, having been among 13 LA County employees accused of stealing $430,000 in unemployment benefits in October 2025. The pattern across all 4 notes: media delivery, ignored deadlines, no direct family contact, no proof of life, and multiple apparent senders, has led former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker to openly question whether the ransom notes came from opportunists rather than the actual abductor. Persons detained, investigated, and released. Following the release of doorbell footage on February 10th, a man was detained during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, approximately 60 miles south of Tucson, near the Mexico border. He identified himself as a DoorDash delivery driver named Carlos Palazuelos and told Telemundo that agents said he resembled the surveillance suspect. His home and vehicle were searched. He was released within hours and formally cleared. Sheriff Nanos confirmed he was fully cooperative and, following an interview and forensic review, was determined not to be involved. 3 days later, late on February 13th, the investigation escalated dramatically. FBI and Pima County SWAT executed a federal search warrant at a residence near East Orange Grove Road and North 1st Avenue, approximately 2 miles from Guthrie's home. 3 to 4 people were detained. At a nearby Culver's restaurant, agents investigated a grey Range Rover with significant front-end damage, photographing the interior and trunk before towing it away. The operation lasted approximately 8 hours. All detained individuals were released without charges. Nanos confirmed no sign of Nancy was found. DNA results from the Range Rover were pending as of February 17th. On February 16th, Sheriff Nanos issued perhaps the investigation's most definitive statement to date, formally clearing the entire Guthrie family. The Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious, and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. Nanos added that the family had been cleared in the first few days. Theory 1. Targeted kidnapping for ransom is how the FBI and Sheriff's Office have officially treated this case from the start. At least one ransom note contained crime scene details not public at the time, leading FBI SAC Yankee to say he believed at least one of the notes is legitimate. TMZ's Harvey Levin assessed the note's phrasing as indicating a Tucson area sender, and Savannah Guthrie's fame and presumed wealth provide an obvious motive for a ransom-driven crime. Sheriff Nanos himself, when asked directly, said he believes this was a kidnapping, not a burglary. The theory's weakness is the execution. Disorganized demands, multiple apparent senders, deadlines passing without consequence, and the family receiving zero direct contact despite begging publicly for it. Former FBI profiler Catherine Schweit posed a question no one has answered. If somebody engaged in kidnapping Miss Guthrie, why is that individual not doing a better job of getting their money and getting her back? Theory 2. A staff or service worker with inside knowledge has drawn serious attention from investigators. FBI veteran Barbara Daly told Katie Couric's Substack Live that the crime would almost require somebody with some kind of knowledge of her pattern of life. Nancy had household staff and service workers who would know the home's layout, security setup, and her schedule. Neighbor Laura Gargano noted it was common for the same yard service to work multiple properties in the area. Significantly, the FBI requested footage from January 11th, 3 weeks before the disappearance, suggesting possible pre-crime surveillance. No evidence publicly links any staff member or service worker to the crime, but investigators have not ruled it out, and a pre-surveillance angle keeps this theory very much alive. Theory 3. A burglary that spiraled out of control has gained traction in investigative circles. An inside source told AZ Family's true crime correspondent Brianna Whitney on February 15th that there is widespread investigative belief the abduction began as a burglary gone wrong, not a planned kidnapping. Crime analyst Weaver Bachman argued the suspect's clothing and equipment were toward planning a burglary, not a kidnapping. And retired FBI agent Gregory Vecchi theorized Nancy likely woke during a break-in, and a panicked suspect took her rather than flee. Former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker openly questioned whether the ransom notes came from opportunists rather than the actual abductor. The theory's sharpest objection comes from retired Las Vegas Police Lieutenant Randy Sutton. In Pima County, the incidence of home invasion robberies or nighttime burglaries is just about zero. Somebody doesn't come to a home dressed like this monster to commit a burglary. The most uncomfortable question also remains. If this was a burglary gone wrong, why take an 84-year-old woman with limited mobility rather than simply flee? Theory 4. Drug cartel involvement was initially fueled by the proximity to the Mexican border, 70 miles, and the early search in Rio Rico. Randy Sutton argued on Fox News that the ski mask was reminiscent of cartel style, and President Trump, when asked, said, "You can't say that yet. It's a little bit early." Most experts, however, are skeptical. The suspect's amateurish gun handling and cheap Walmart equipment are inconsistent with the efficiency of cartel operations. NBC News expert Matt Cavanaugh sees no reason a cartel would target someone like Guthrie, and News Nation's Brian Enton reported, "The more law enforcement I talk to, the more telling me the person doesn't look overly sophisticated or professional. Cartel, for example, would have been more efficient," they say. Theory 5. Family member involvement was amplified by internet sleuths and former News Nation host Ashley Banfield, who claimed on February 4th that a highly regarded law enforcement source told her Chione may be the prime suspect. Online sleuths cited physical similarities between Chione and the masked suspect, his familiarity with the home's security setup, and the fact that Annie appeared to have removed photos of Chione from social media around February 8th. This theory was definitively and publicly rejected when Sheriff Nanos cleared the entire family on February 16th, stating they had been cleared in the first few days. Banfield doubled down as recently as February 12th. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Only to be contradicted 4 days later. Jimmy Eat World drummer Zach Lind, whose wife is Nancy's niece, publicly vouched for Annie and Tommaso as amazing people, dedicated parents, who also love and care for Nancy on a daily basis. Among the remaining theories investigators have explored, a wrong house or mistaken identity scenario has been proposed by former FBI agents, though it is undermined by the ransom notes referencing Savannah Guthrie by name and the suspect's apparent deliberate targeting of the doorbell camera. A medical emergency or wandering explanation was floated early on, but effectively eliminated by the February 10th doorbell footage showing an armed intruder. FBI profiler Candace DeLong suggested the crime bore the hallmarks of a narcissistic psychopath, someone enormously confident in themselves, which aligns with the pre-surveillance evidence, but sits uneasily alongside a ransom execution so disorganized that several experts see a fundamental contradiction between a well-planned abduction and a completely botched extortion attempt. The family's desperate public appeals. Savannah Guthrie stepped away from all NBC duties, including co-hosting the 2026 Winter Olympics opening ceremonies in Milan Cortina. She has posted at least 9 Instagram messages since February 1st, each escalating in emotional intensity. On February 4th, flanked by siblings Annie and Cameron on a bench, she read a prepared statement. "Our mom is our heart and our home. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain. She is without any medicine. She needs it to survive. She needs it not to suffer." Addressing possible captors. "We are ready to talk. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her." To her mother directly. "Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We will not rest, your children will not rest, until we are together again." Former FBI Deputy Director McCabe assessed that every word of that statement was carefully honed with the assistance of the FBI experts who were advising the family. On February 7th, at the 1-week mark, the 3 siblings appeared together again. "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay." On February 15th, Savannah posted what CNN's Brian Stelter called perhaps the hardest one to watch yet, a solo video. "It's been 2 weeks since our mom was taken, and I just wanted to come on and say that we still have hope and we still believe. I wanted to say to whoever has her or who knows where she is, that it's never too late, and you're not lost or alone. And it is never too late to do the right thing." Her brother Cameron, a retired F-16 fighter pilot who served 26 years in the Vermont Air National Guard, had posted his own video on February 5th, timed precisely to the moment the first ransom deadline expired, saying, "Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly." Political intervention and media firestorm. President Trump called Savannah on February 4th and posted on Truth Social, "I spoke with Savannah Guthrie and let her know that I am directing all federal law enforcement to be at the family's and local law enforcement's complete disposal immediately." On February 16th, he told the New York Post that kidnappers would face very, very severe, the most severe federal consequences, including the death penalty, if Nancy were found dead. FBI Director Kash Patel personally visited the Tucson Command Center on February 8th to 9th and told Fox News' Sean Hannity the agency was investigating more than one person of interest. The case triggered a media phenomenon. Hoda Kotb, who had left the Today Show in January 2025, returned on February 6th as a temporary co-anchor. "We talk about our show like it's a family. We are a family." CNN aired a 1-hour special, The Search for Nancy Guthrie, hosted by Laura Coates. True crime streamers descended on Tucson. John DePetro, 250,000 plus followers, flew in within 3 days. Andy Signora of Popcorned Planet, 950,000 YouTube subscribers, streamed from the scene. Sheriff Nanos pushed back. Social media's kind of an ugly world sometimes. Arizona State Rep Adelita Grijalva criticized media influencers and armchair detectives for baselessly accusing people, and Boston Globe columnist Renee Graham wrote on February 15th, "What's driven all this attention is a combination of an insatiable true crime fascination, fame, and especially social media. The Ashley Banfield controversy stands as a case study in irresponsible reporting. Her February 4th claim that Chione was the prime suspect was immediately denied by the sheriff's department, yet she doubled down on February 12th. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. 4 days later, the entire family was formally cleared. Reports also emerged of tension between the Sheriff's Department and FBI, with unnamed sources claiming Nanos was blocking the FBI from accessing key evidence, a claim Nanos denied, and an FBI agent reportedly told him, "We do not want the media to divide us." Where the case stands on day 17. As of February 17, 2026, the investigation sits at a critical juncture. The DNA profile from the glove, the most promising forensic lead, is undergoing final quality control before CODIS entry, with results potentially available within hours to days. If the unknown male is in the database, the case could break open overnight. If not, forensic genealogy becomes the next avenue. Investigators are simultaneously pursuing multiple parallel tracks, tracing Walmart sales records for the backpack and clothing, analyzing cell tower data through the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team, awaiting DNA results from the towed Range Rover, and processing 40,000 to 50,000 tips. Several hundred detectives and agents remain assigned to the case. No suspect has been publicly named. No person of interest has been identified. Sheriff Nanos has warned the case could take years, but also stated, "We won't quit." Retired FBI agent Jason Pack offered a sober summary. They have data, mountains of it. Names have surfaced and been evaluated. Applying elimination reasoning to the available evidence, several conclusions emerge with reasonable confidence. The family did not do this. Investigators cleared all siblings and spouses within the first few days, a determination requiring sufficient evidence to formally exclude them, and the unknown male DNA points decisively away from anyone in the household. This was almost certainly not a cartel operation. The cheap equipment, amateurish gun handling, and bungled ransom execution are inconsistent with professional criminal enterprise, a conclusion most law enforcement experts have reached independently. The ransom communications appear to be a mix of opportunism and possible partial authenticity. At least one note contained crime scene details not publicly known, suggesting some connection to the crime. But the media-directed delivery, absence of proof of life, ignored deadlines, and a confirmed copycat Kalela all suggest the ransom landscape has been contaminated. The actual abductor may or may not have authored any of them. That leaves the burglary gone wrong theory as the most parsimonious explanation. Someone with some knowledge of the property, possibly a service worker, neighbor, or someone who conducted surveillance as early as January the 11th, attempted to break into what appeared to be a wealthy, elderly woman's home, encountered Nancy awake, and improvised an abduction when confronted with a witness. The forensic awareness shown in his clothing and camera removal suggests a degree of premeditation. The tactical amateurism suggests he had never actually done something like this before. The subsequent ransom attempts may represent panicked improvisation, or entirely separate opportunists capitalizing on a national news story. The critical unknown, and the factor that determines whether this story ends in reunion or tragedy, is whether Nancy Guthrie is still alive. Her limited mobility, dependence on daily medication described as potentially fatal to go without, and the passage of 17 days all weigh heavily. Yet investigators maintain widespread belief that she could be alive, and no body has been found. The DNA in CODIS represents the case's most immediate hope. As Savannah Guthrie said on February 15th, "It is never too late to do the right thing." Do you want to bring bad things with you wherever you go? Our episodes are now available as a podcast. Look us up on your favorite podcast app and listen to the most truth-seeking true crime podcast out there.